Thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you for urging us to have this hearing today. We've spoken a great deal today about civilian control of the military in terms of the President and the Secretary of Defense. But I want to raise a broader question about the relationship between the military and our citizens as a whole, which relates to this question about civilian control. I come from a military family. All three of my brothers served. But this isn't as common as it used to be. It's been more than a generation since we've had massive mobilization on the scale of World War I and World War II and Vietnam. America has an extraordinary professional fighting force, the best the world has ever seen. But many people in our country are disconnected from our military. And I think our founders would have been surprised by this development. They were deeply worried about our country getting tied up in foreign wars, and they were especially worried about a president using the military to increase his own fame and to perpetuate his own power. And that is why Congress, not the president, retains important war powers. It's also why the founders expected citizens to pay for military engagements and to serve in the military. Now, Dr. Hicks, I know you also recognize the extraordinary skill and professionalism of our military, but when we think about civilian control of the military, are there consequences to having wide portions of the population that no longer have substantial ties to an active military?
Senator Warner, I do think there are consequences. I think it's a distortion that can play out both positively, if you will, and negatively with regard to decisions about use of force. I would just say, if I had to pick just a few items to focus on, I am concerned that the lack of understanding of the long-term costs of conflict is exacerbated by individuals in the country being less familiar with the military. And I think you see that play out, if you will, in the longer-term stabilization decisions we've had to make over time in the United States.
Thank you. You know, when one of history's great military strategists, Karl von Clausewitz, talked about warfare, he noted the need to pay attention not only to the military and to political leaders, but also to the people of the nation. So I want to ask a related question about public support for decisions about when to use our military. If we want to be successful in future wars, do you think we need to develop a strategy to get citizens more engaged? And if so, why? Dr. Hicks, Dr. Cohen, whoever would like to on this.
I do think we're facing a crisis on civic engagement on foreign and security policy. We have seen over time a general consensus about what the U.S. role in the world is fraying, not breaking, but fraying. And there seems to be a lot of confusion and uncertainty. As a matter of fact, two of the most recent major polls of the public on foreign and security policy, the Pew poll and the Chicago Council poll, use uncertainty in their titles, and it just goes to this idea that the public and the elite, if you will, no longer are having a constant dialogue about what the U.S. role is in the world.
Thank you. Dr. Cohen, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I would. First thing to that immediate point, I would say, in my view, it is extremely important that Congress authorized the use of military force, and I was deeply disappointed that for our third Iraq War and for the Libyan intervention, that did not occur. I'm not going to assign blame. I'm just saying, as a citizen, I found that profoundly disappointing. To your earlier point, I would say that there are a number of things that you can do and that we should do. One is simply, and by the way, I speak as the father of two service members. The first is to get ROTC programs out on all kinds of campuses, including campuses where they have not traditionally been. And we're both from Massachusetts, so we know what we're talking about there. And even if it's not entirely efficient, to have ROTC out there as a presence. I also have to say that I think that a lot of the attempt to rationalize our base structure didn't help us in this regard. And again, I'll speak as somebody from Massachusetts. When I was in ROTC, we were always at Fort Devens, tromping around in the mud. There was a military presence in New England. There's much less of a military presence today. That's not healthy. And even if it's not entirely administratively rational or economically rational, I think it is very important for people to have contact with the military, and for a number of reasons. One of which is it's also important not to put the military on too much of a pedestal. You know, Harry Truman was a great president because he'd been a National Guard captain, and he knew the underside as well as the things that are truly, truly noble and inspiring about the military and about military service. So I really worry about it from, if you will, from both ends.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much. It seems to me that the broader divide between our citizens and our military makes it even more important that we continue to keep front and center the importance of having civilian control over the military. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.